Are you in sport? Oh, yeah. Copperhead Road, 3.62. Stay on it. Jesus.
That's top speed.
12-second flat, quarter mile, and it got to its top speed in it. Wow, that's amazing. It's faster than my Beamer. Testing out the self-driving. We are going to die. It's taking a turn. Wow, it's not yelling if your hands on the steering wheel either. Pretty smooth. Keep your hands on the wheel. There it goes. Oh, that's awesome. These screens are sharp, man. Oh, I love it. So I got the opportunity to play with a Rivian R1T for an entire day. Awesome truck, really interesting. Had a few gripes here and there, but overall really, really want one. Just a lot of capability. There's a lot of freedom with the design with the electric platform. There's no drive shafts to worry about, so the space is awesome. I think they could maximize the space in the front of the truck a little better in the front trunk, but look how low it is here. I mean, you can slam this thing, and that's how it drives on the road a lot, and it drives like a car. You would never guess it was 7,000 pounds. So right here, we're just measuring suspension travel and things like that we always do because we're nerds, but the bed's also pretty big. Putting the brake, wake it up. Now I can go off-road. And then it's going to highest automatically when you get off-road because we're in rock crawl, which says here is 15 inches of ground clearance, which is just phenomenal. Compressor running to crank it up, which is right here. And you could actually air your tires up with this compressor, unlike my Ram. Genius. So it definitely goes down faster than my Ram, but I think it goes up slower. So this is kind of annoying. It took a solid 4 minutes to go from its lowest setting to its highest setting. Compressor running the whole time, which obviously is using electricity and increasing your range. Not a problem on the Ram. The Ram takes about a minute to go from bottom to top. Measure it at 18 5/8. Now we're at 24 1/4. So here's some measurements in the ride height delta. We did find that the rear suspension climbs up about another 3/4 of an inch after you rock the truck, and that's because the rear suspension has a lot of scrub, meaning that it's got to change width in order to go through suspension travel, so you got to kind of roll it forward and back. Not a huge deal in the truck, but just something to notice. That's because of the crazy short suspension arms on it. Oh, it's like 32 inches.
32?
Yeah. So that's 2 inches lower than mine.
Yeah.
That's significant ramp angle change. Also, one thing I'm really disappointed about is this bed cover, which seems really cool because it's electric and it tucks away in this small area. However, it doesn't slide in flush, so your dirt bike or four-wheeler tire is going to sit against it, and I suspect it'll break it. I also don't like how the thing that folds up to give you more tailgate space, that fills the gap between the tailgate and the bed, sits right here like this. And I think off-roading, you hear a lot of this. So this tailgate release is actually broken. There was some wood sitting up against the tailgate while it was up, and now you have to use two hands to take it down. So there's a lot of little things like that I'm sure Rivian will fix. This is like one of the first trucks they produced, but several little things in the truck that need to be improved, as you'll keep seeing. So let's take some measurements. So there's the bed with it open. This thing closes, and apparently you can stand on it. That's phenomenal. That's about the only bed cover I'd have because it's super convenient. The bed is 51-inch opening.
How you doing?
Good. And 50 and a half. So now I'm laying on the ground underneath it. These skid plates don't look super beefy. I think there's going to be a stronger option available later on, but they're plastic, and some people have already damaged them doing mild off-roading, if you look around at some YouTube videos. Hitch is super beefy and thick steel. It hooks to the steel frame. We found out, for some reason I thought this thing was all aluminum, but it's a steel frame with aluminum suspension. Real pretty suspension links. I don't love the geometry. That front trailing arm is really short, and the shock mounts to one arm, and the airbag right here mounts to this other arm. So it's kind of a crazy suspension. Really gives you awesome ground clearance, but the big problem is that this motor, whatever that hydraulic unit is, that's your sway control built into the shocks like a McLaren, it's totally exposed when you're in the high suspension setting. So if you do rock crawling or run sticks and stuff, those lines are going to get hit, bended, pinched, destroyed. So that's a serious improvement that you need to make if you're going to off-road this truck really hard. Basically, you need some steel skid plates on this thing, and you need some kind of protection for these complicated, expensive-looking shocks. But it does have 10.6 inches of travel in the rear and 10.4 in the front. This. Yeah, look at that. That's very Tesla-like. But a lot of fasteners, and it is a totally flat, slick skid plate. You have no transfer case hanging down. So for some types of off-road situations, nothing's going to touch this because there's no pumpkin back here, independent suspension, and almost like a Hummer, where the suspension starts really close to the edge and drops straight down. You know, Hummer has portal axles, this doesn't. But down here, let's measure the claimed ground clearance. So to the lowest point, which is this bump, is 15 inches. That's like 6 inches more than that Tacoma sitting over there, and like 7 inches more than my Ram, and also more than that Land Cruiser. All right, so now we're into the front. Now you can see more up here. It's got this bigger open control arm. There's your suspension adjustments. Again, everything's aluminum, big wishbone, looks like an old Honda Accord type front suspension kinda. That's a pretty tiny tie rod. That tie rod is very reminiscent of the new Bronco that keeps bending tie rods. Don't love that. Axle's huge though. I guess the motor's back there somewhere. You can see a little better in the front than the rear. Front motors have slightly less power. Oh, Rivian. There's the steering rack and the shaft going up there. Let's go to this other side. It's probably the same. Yeah, a lot of the same over here. No sway bar. Again, it's all hydraulic. Now there's the motor back in there. Pretty cool. Subframe bolts up. I think this thing has more steel than we think, which is funny because, you know, it's supposed to be a body on frame truck. The front ground clearance is about 14.5. But the front doesn't have that little dip in the back. Magnet test. Ugh. I'm a material scientist. It sticks. That's steel.
Where?
Everything the aluminum suspension subframe bolts to is steel.
You're gonna have. I feel like all the plasticiness of this is somewhat unavoidable.
So there's the gear tunnel everyone talked about. Pretty ingenious. I'm standing on the door to the gear tunnel, which feels really solid. And here's what it looks like from the top. This is some launch edition stuff, but hopefully it will go away forever. Tie downs up here, you can put your roof racks across there. Here, everything you touch normally feels really premium. Like all this, stitching everywhere, yes. Back of the seat, super nice, very sexy. Here's the gear tunnel. And close it up. So we put like 170 miles in this truck, and we're going to charge it up a little bit using the supplied charger under the hood with 120 volt AC power from this house, and we're getting plus 1 mile per hour of charge. So every hour we charge this thing, we can drive 1 mile. So this truck is really cool. I want one. It's extremely powerful. There's a few things I would beef up on it for serious off-roading on the underbody. But the interior and the practicality of this thing and the maneuverability, it's amazing. It also launches off the line like a Tesla, pins you in your seat up to at least 30 miles an hour, 12-second quarter mile, and it's, you know, it's a truck. And the bed's pretty functional. You can put a 4x8 sheet of plywood in it, so I want one bad. Might end up getting one. This one's 135 kilowatt hours, gives you about 250 miles range. There's a 180 kilowatt hour version battery coming out. That should give you 320 miles range. We got to see once it comes out.